This is what I needed those screws for that I was searching for yesterday. And I found exactly what I needed. But I was missing some screws off the back of this. So it's up and running again. And what I'm going to do, I used to do a lot of this. I used to do shows all the time. I sold a lot of them. But I have a lot of material left. Like this is out of blue jeans, and like this is a rag ball. Out of old jeans cut into strips and sewn together. So I'm going to make a bunch of small denim on the multicolored warp, which is a nice looking thing. So I decided, well, it's going to be nice for the next week. So I set up this old Orco outside. It's just nicer to work outside. Though it'll be a little better when I get completely in the shade here. It's warming up. But what I was going to talk about, I needed them screws, so I dug through them old boxes of junk. Now it surprises me, people say, oh, get rid of that junk. They view junk as a burden that they have to live with. I don't see it that way. To me that's a kind of a resource. But I think there's a difference in, a lot of people now, like, oh, they need a couple of screws, they drive into town. Well, I don't want to drive 30 miles for 2 screws when I know I have screws. But I see people do that all the time. I like to have the resource on hand. But it made me think of something. I have, got to be 20 button jars. My family's been making rugs for a long time, and for years, even my great-grandmother was saving buttons. You take old clothes apart, you save the buttons. Then if you need a button, like if I lose a button off of this shirt, I can guarantee you I can go in here and find one. Or at least one that's damn close. Rather than go and buy a button or throw the shirt away. It's just a different attitude. But I think it has to do with, a lot of this started from back in the 30s. People that grew up in the Depression learned to be able to rely on yourself to keep things on hand, to reuse everything you could. And people have gotten away from that. Now, I didn't grow up in the 30s, but my parents did. And that attitude has kind of been drilled into me. You just don't go and buy everything new every time you need some little thing, It was funny too, again, digging in that junk, I found this old scrub brush. Now, I know this originally came from probably a Fuller Brush man. I think I had an uncle who was selling Fuller Brush at one time. Or it could have been from the Watkins man who used to come around. But I wanted one of these scrub brushes one time, and I went into town. You can't find a regular old scrub brush like this. Everything now is all plastic body, plastic bristles, made in China. These plain old scrub brushes are hard to find, and that's exactly what I wanted. Can't find what I want. Got to go back, find the old stuff. But I can see, it's like people saving scraps of wood. Scraps of wood are always handy. But in some people's eyes, this is hoarding. That isn't hoarding, it's just common sense. It's different, like people that save old newspapers. You know, get a house full of old newspapers. You know, well, you know, that's a little extreme. But, you know, saving things like buttons, this is not a burden to me. And if I use 3 buttons out of there in my lifetime, it's been worth it, you know. But it's a funny attitude that people have, that keeping things on hand and making do with what you have is a bad thing. I don't think that way. But anyway, this is the, like I say, the Oracle Model 70. And people who have been around for a while on the channel know this is the loom that my ma had in the VA home where she was. And she did a lot of weaving there. The whole family's been into this weaving thing for a long time. Like I said, I used to do shows. I lost interest in it. It got to be a nuisance going to shows. And there again, you have the government interference. You know, if I take an old pair of pants and make a rug out of it, for some reason, the government thinks, both state and federal, thinks they should get a cut out of it. I don't see it that way. I don't see why that's any of their business. But they want to make it their business. And it gets to be a pain in the ass. So like I say, I kind of lost interest in dealing with the paperwork angle of it even. But I do have several looms, and I have a lot of material, and I have a lot of the warp, the carpet warp. So I figured I'd make some, but I won't be selling them. What I'll do, you know, my sister still does shows, and I know she's got shows coming up, and she needs rugs for us, so I'll make some up ahead, and if she needs them, I'll send them with her. But the government really discourages that sort of thing, you know, of a cottage-type industry. They want to get involved in it. But anyway, I was saying, okay, Ma had this loom in the home. And in fact, this warp that is on here now is what I put up on here when they were in lockdown. It was a bugger because I had they had to lock the art room so nobody else could come in. I had to come in the back door, had to wear a mask at all times. I wasn't supposed to touch anything else in the place. You know, it was a freak show. I don't blame those people. The problem is they're a government outfit, you know, the VA is, and so they were bound to do what the government told them they had to do. But she used to enjoy it, you know, she could weave in this art room and people would come through and talk, and she'd sell a few rugs, and it was a community sort of thing, you know, and she enjoyed doing it. But then the lockdown started, and you couldn't even go in there and visit anymore. You know, and then you could, for a while there, you could visit outside in the courtyard for a limited amount of time. You had to set up an appointment. They would meet you out there. You could talk for like a half hour or an hour. But you had to wear a mask at all times, and you had to have your temperature tested before you could do it. And then it got to the point where they wouldn't even allow that anymore. Though it wasn't like this virus was running rampant in the place. But and they quit doing their bingo, which people really enjoyed. They couldn't have community meals anymore, which it used to be. Mom loved it if us kids could come in there and have a meal with them. You know, all the people there, they just enjoyed having visitors come in. And also they couldn't do it anymore with this great lockdown, to halt the spread, dampen that curve. Well, so things started going downhill. And then they came up with a vaccine. Well, I could see right away after the first shot, that didn't do her a bit of good, man. She was going downhill. And she used to ask, you'd talk to her, and she'd say, how come they're being so mean to us? And it wasn't, how can you explain that this is the government? Like I say, I don't blame the people working there. They were following the rules, but I don't care for rules like that. Well, then she had the second shot, and that pretty much did her in. She didn't last long after that. But, that's a common story. So anyway, I ended up with a loom, but like I say, this warp is what I put on, but after I'd warped it, she never wove again. There seemed to her no point in it anymore. It took the joy out of her life. Not being able to have people and talk to people. But anyway, I've got the rag balls and I've got the machine. So I figured I'll set it up and I'll make some rugs up. But, it was a lovely shutdown. So it's just the way the world works. But you could see, that was hurting those people. And I'm sure they're still probably, I haven't been back there since she died, but I'm sure they're still on some extreme sort of lockdown because, like I say, it's a federal facility. But I got the buttons and I got the rag balls, and I will make up some rugs. But I don't consider what people like to refer to as hoarding as a bad thing. For some reason, though, that's the way people like to picture it. But having that kind of stuff on hand has saved me so many times. I see no fault in it. But like I say, it's something that people learned in the 30s. And growing up around, all the adults I knew had lived through the 30s. And they continued to live that way, knowing that could happen again at any time. And I guess actually, that attitude, growing up with that, I never got over that, which is a good thing. I think now you will find out that is the way to think. But we'll make up a few rugs.